on this one. And he goes on and he says, the bishops of Rome in that age were not a match for such disputants. They had also a dread, a reasonable one, of polytheism, you see? So polytheism, going back to multiple gods, was out of the question. The city in which they dwelt was crowded with false deities. Would make sense that Paul was not, only warning the Ephesians, but even the Romans, the Roman church. Wherever they turned their eyes, they witnessed the vicious and debasing effects of idolatry. See Exodus chapter 20, verse 3. You will have no other gods before me. They heard the terrible denunciation sounding in scripture against it. Now, this is key. I've underlined this in red. The unity of the true God but must be maintained at any rate against the manifold pretensions of the pagan pantheon. Does that remind you of the Trinity, three divine persons? Does that sound like a pantheon? It does to me. So if the Trinity was already, the original faith of the early Christians, this doesn't make any sense because they dreaded going back to the many gods. And even Tertullian says, when we preach the Logos doctrine, they say you're preaching two gods. We hold to the monarchia, monarchiam tenemus. We hold to the monarchy. Hence, there naturally existed at Rome a predisposition to what is commonly called the monarchian system of theology. Brother Daniel, brothers and sisters, it's all there. He's saying in Rome, naturally, it existed already a predisposition to what is commonly called the monarchian system. It was common knowledge. The monarchian faith was no heresy of what we're hearing today in our modern time. It was common knowledge. The majority of the Christians held to the monarchian system. And here we may remark that if the Trinitarian doctrine is not true, wow, this was amazing for an author to be so truthful on this point. And here we may remark that if the Trinitarian doctrine is not true, and it's not true, its maintenance in the primitive church is unaccountable. You cannot account for any evidence for the Trinity doctrine in the primitive church. Wow. That is amazing. He's literally telling you it's unaccountable. The Trinity doctrine was unheard of. Exactly what Tertullian said. Even Adolf says it in his early church history in regards to the book is called Dogma. I forget it. It's in volume 3. Just bear with me a second. It's in my brain. History of Dogma, volume 3. If you read History of Dogma, volume 3, he literally says that it was unheard of. The Logos doctrine was unheard of. History of Dogma, volume 3 by Adolf Harnacht. There, it's all there. And here we may, so he goes on, he says, all antecedent probability was against it. The doctrine of three persons, each of them divine, could never have risen spontaneously in a church whose prevailing spirit was a dread of polytheism. Did you catch that? He's telling you that the doctrine of the Trinity, preaching three divine persons, which is essentially tritheism. It is paganism in disguise. He's saying this couldn't just arise in the church that was in dread of polytheism, in dread of going back to polytheism. So why would they encourage the doctrine of three persons? I'm just unpacking this for you because this is what the author is saying. And I will end with this. There was much in the church at that time to prevent the spread of the doctrine of the Trinity, nothing to produce it.